Hello, my name is Leroy Blevins. Welcome to Mysteries and Histories. In this episode here, what I want to do is I want to talk about Mr. Zapruder Ms.Sitzman and the JFK assassination. Now, as an investigator and researcher, we have to understand a lot of things. We have to look at a lot of things as well. When we're analyzing this kind of, case, and when we're going over this kind of case, they always say everybody's a suspect. And when you see things that throws up red flags and stuff like that, you have to understand that it starts making you think, it starts making you wonder, especially when they tell their story, that things don't match up or things don't line up as well. So what I want to do here is I want to show some things that always makes me suspicious about certain things when it comes to viewing this case. And people don't understand that when you view a case, they're constantly paying attention. That's why I said a lot of this information has been lost because they're constantly been paying attention just to Oswald and JFK and Governor Connolly and stuff, but they're never looking outside that box and stuff like that to see for themselves of, why is this happening, or why is that happening, or why is this person here, or why is that person there, and the surroundings that we see in the films and images. Okay, now they want to push out the umbrella man saying he's waving up and down and stuff like that, and certain little things. But they don't go full into details like why was he doing this? Was he actually going with his umbrella up and down and stuff? Investigate that. They just made the claim that was it. But what I want to do in this video here is I want to point out some facts here. Now, as I point out, when it came to the JFK assassination and Mr. Zapruder and Mrs. Sitzman, okay, they was standing in this location right here. If you watch my cursor, they were standing in this location right here. But it makes me wonder, why did they pick this specific location? Why couldn't they pick right over here? Start filming over here? Or why, if they said he had vertigo. Now, if he had vertigo, then why he stand up on this pedestal here when he could just, easily stand down here in front of it and had a good view? Or he could stand over down closer to the street and had a good view, or stand anywhere along here and had a good view as well, be able to film the whole thing, or even stand out in this location right here in the grass area. Could have filmed a lot of it, or he could stand right over here and filmed a lot of it, or stand over here and filmed a lot of it without having to climbing up there. Just like when you look at his building, he was in the Dow Tex building on a fourth or fifth floor. Why didn't he film out the window, which he could have got full view that way? If you look at it this way, he had full view. He could still record the whole thing from his location up here. Or, he could start filming down Houston Street as well. Okay? And he could film Houston Street and all the way down here. But he specifically picked this location. That's what makes me wonder why. Well, when I said, he's the only one in this location doing any type of filming. But they said he had vertigo. That's the reason why Mrs. Sitzman was on a wall with him. But if he had vertigo, why did he climb up on a wall? Why didn't he just stand on the steps right here? Or why didn't he stand right here? Or over here? Or even got behind here and start filming? He still could have filmed the whole thing. Or stand right here in this location here. Or even came down here on the sidewalk, stuff like that. Because there's people over here filming and stuff like that. So he could have done the same thing. But he didn't. He chose to be right in this specific location. He could have even been over here and filmed. But he wasn't. He was in this specific location. And as you see, and I point out in my research, that there was two gunmen and beside that shelter that was right behind Mr. Zapruder. Now, when we watch the films and images, okay, here's the red flags that that comes up to me. When we look at this image right here, okay, we see Mr. Zapruder, Mrs. Sitzman, on the retaining wall there, and as you see, she's got one hand right here on her hip, another hand right over behind Mr. Zapruder, but not even holding on to him while he's standing here filming. And you see, she's not even close. Actually, here's her other hand. If you see it right here, this is her other hand right here. And she's got one hand like this. Okay, one hand straight down, but she's not even holding on to Mr. Zapruder, and he's right here. And there's a little bit of, distance between her and him right here. And this is when they first turned down on Elm Street. Now, that's what got me. And I even looked at this image here, and we see the same thing. There was no movement. Okay, you can see the trees in between them here. Okay, from this angle, you can see the trees between them. And she was far away from him right here at this point. So if you have vertigo, why she's doing up on that pillar right there with him, on that retaining wall there. But remember, he has vertigo. So when I start viewing the films and start watching it and stuff like that, all of a sudden over the next film we see Mrs. Setzman's hands come up and cover over Mr. Zapruder's ears. That's before the shots rang out. Well, in the Zapruder film, when we analyze the film, when we go over, we see all these frames are clear. But when we see the but in frame 313, when the shot was taking place from behind him, the frames started coming blurry. And then they start clearing back up again. And then by time frame 330 comes around, that's when the second shot rang out from behind him. Again, the frames started coming blurry. So behind here, we can pinpoint that there was two shots happening behind Mr. Zapruder that made him move a little bit for the frames to get out, for the frames to start getting blurry and stuff like that. So we know this is possible that something happened behind him. But when we also look at other films, it's like we look at the Bronson film, okay, which really gets me too, and people don't look at this and people don't point this stuff out, but it makes me think. We have the Bronson film, and when we zoom in, it's gotten to the point where we see Mrs. Setzman right here. Okay, see how her arm's down and it comes back up and it comes out this way? Because actually she's covering Mr. Zapruder's ears at this point here because her hands are like this. Okay, her hands are like this. So she's covering Mr. Zapruder's ears. That's why we can't always see Mr. Zapruder so much, because she's actually covering his face, his ears and stuff, because she's a big woman, because Mr. Zapruder's right down here. And she's covering up his ears because here's his head level right here, and she's covering up his ears and stuff right here. So why was she covering up his ears? And when the shots was ranged up behind. Another thing that brought up red flags to me is this. When we watch the films and images, you see Mrs. Setzman, gets off the wall, and Mr. Zapruder jumps down off that wall right where the steps are. Now, if you have vertigo, wouldn't you think you were trying to be careful coming down? But he actually jumps right off of it and between them steps, and he starts walking away, which we can see that in the films and images as well, which let me pull up this frame right here. Okay, we'll see Mr. Zapruder just walking right off, and Mrs. Setzman turns around and she starts going back toward the Pelagora there in shelter number 3. But then when we watch the film, she stops for a minute, she looks over by Mr. Zapruder, and his arm comes up and come this way, and then she turns around and starts going that way instead of going fully into the shelter. She just walks right behind him. Another red flag is when I'm watching these films, analyzing these films and stuff like that, it's like these things pop up flags and stuff, and I want to get this information out. Then what we find out is, it's funny, because here's Mrs. Setzman. She goes and stands in front, as we see her right here. This is her. And the reason why I pull a frame from the Zapruder film to show you what Mrs. Setzman looks like, we can see her right here, okay? She's in front of the Texas School Book Depository. But Mr. Zapruder ain't, because Mr. Zapruder, when they left that shelter area there from shelter number 3, they walked around and stuff. Mrs. Setzman stands in front of Texas School Book Depository, but Mr. Zapruder walks off and keeps on going and goes into the newsroom. Okay, where he's giving his testimony of what happened that day. And at the same time, they're trying to get his film developed. Now, wouldn't you think that Mrs. Setzman should be with him too? Because she was right there. But she wasn't. She stayed right in front of Texas School Book Depository. Why? Then after that same day or the next day, when Mr. Zapruder sold his film, because he was the first one who made money off the JFK assassination, because he sold the film for actually $150,000 is what he sold his film for. Back in 1963, he gave a big proportion of that money to Mrs. Setzman, which also brings up red flags to me as well. So at this point, I'm sitting here thinking, there could have been plenty of locations that Mr. Zapruder could have been filming, but he picked this specific location right here. Okay, and then remember, he has vertigo, but when we look at the films and images and stuff, we see Mrs. Setzman standing way over here while he's standing there basically by himself. It was not until JFK's limo started getting closer, and then we see the babushka ladies come on, when Mrs. Setzman starts bringing up her hands and covering over Mr. Zapruder's ears. Then she's close to him, and then the shots rang out because we start seeing blurriness in the frames and stuff like that. So even with his ears covered, he's going to hear a little bit of it, but it's not going to startle him as much as it would be if his ears wasn't covered. So she goes ahead and covers his ears, and shots rang out from behind him because we know there was 2 gunmen inside shelter number 3. Then after the assassination, Mrs. Sitzman gets down right in this location here, and Mr. Zapruder jumps down. Now, a person with vertigo does not jump down off a wall. He jumps down in between these steps, as you see in the images and films. And then he starts walking this way. Mrs. Sitzman starts walking this way. As you see, she starts walking this way. And then she looks over to Mr. Zapruder's direction, and he's like waving her back that way with him. And they go out this way. And then they come across here, and then they go right over here, and Mrs. Sitzman stands right in front of the Texas School Book Depository, and Mr. Zapruder just walks off and goes to the newsroom. I wanted to give this information out and let you be the judge on what you think it is. But I want to present it this, so everybody knows this type of information, because of we don't know for a fact what's going on. Even as a researcher stuff, we can find things and piece it together, and find the story of what happened that day and everything else. But there's a lot of other things we have to look at as well. Researchers don't do this. I look at other people's research and look at it and say, well, why didn't they ever talk about this person, that person, where this person was at it during this time and that time? We don't know none of this information. So when I did my investigation, I looked at stuff like this, and when I see something that brings up a red flag, I look at it like, well, why is this person acting this funny, or this person acting this strange? Or, where did this person go from after the assassination? Where did this person go? Where did that person go? Just like Mary Mormon and Gene Hill, and the Newmans and stuff. They're all sitting in the Dealey Plaza still giving out their information stuff. And then we look at Mr. Zapruder. He's sitting there telling everybody, in his first testimonies and interviews and stuff like that, even on live TV, the assassin was right behind him. The assassin was right behind him. Then when the Warren Commission report comes out, then he goes, okay, then he changed the story. Now the shooter was Oswald, and he was on a 6th floor Texas School Book Depository. But in the beginning, he said the assassin was right behind him. The films and images showed the assassin was right behind him, and the shots being fired from behind him. But the key fact is why was Mrs. Sitzman covering Mr. Zapruder's ears? Why was she even on a wall if they claimed he had vertigo? Why was she standing a distance away from him? When they jump off the wall, Mr. Zapruder jumping off that wall, somebody with vertigo is not going to jump off that wall. And as I point out, there are so many locations that he could have been filming. He could have been coming down here on the sidewalk and did filming, or he could stand over here by the steps and did filming, or he could stand in this location here, over here. Why was this specifically this location here that he had to pick? Why couldn't he be down here at street level? Other people were as well. He could have had it still good at full view from the beginning of Elm Street to the down end of Elm Street. But as this specifically, he wanted to be above everybody. And as you see, he zoomed in. When we watch the Zapruder film, okay, we could tell he was full zoomed in. All right, so, that's why we don't see Newmans or anything else when we look at it, because he didn't have it on regular settings. He had full zoom, so he's constantly full zoom on JFK. Excuse me. So this is what makes me think a lot, okay, about what brings up red flags for me. But other researchers don't even bother paying attention to this, because all they're worried about is one specific thing. That's why I said when you do research and do investigations, you have to look outside that box. You got to sit there and, you look up things like, what was he zoomed in? What type of camera he used? That's why I bought a copy of the camera, to see what kind of camera, how it works, and all the mechanics about it, what type of film it is. He's full zoom, so I can get all this information. And like I point out, there's a lot of places he could have, shot his film, but the specific location, and it's right in a specific location where 2 gunmen were at, because we can see in the films and images that this gunman took the fatal headshot to JFK, and we can see in the films and images that this gunman here took the shot to Governor Connally. That's a plain fact now, because we can see it. But they're right behind Mr. Zapruder and Mrs. Sitzman. Mrs. Sitzman goes ahead and covers up Mr. Zapruder's ears before the shots rang out. Why? And she did bring up her hands, but when we put in time frame, she brought up her hands as soon as that babushka lady turns on her light, as we see also in the Zapruder film. Okay, she turns on this light, Mrs. Sitzman's hands comes up and cover his ears. So see, things I'm pointing out here and the things I'm saying, okay, is information that no one knows about. I know about it because I asked that question. I need to know that answer to that question. Okay, and no one else is going to take the time to go look and try to find any answers for me. This is one of the reasons why I said everybody's a suspect until the case is completely closed. Now, we can't ask Mr. Zapruder any questions because he's passed away, God rest his soul, and even Mrs. Sitzman, God rest her soul. But there is something fishy here when we look at this kind of stuff, and there's a lot of red flags coming up, okay, and their story they tell is different than what we're seeing in the films and images, same as I point out in other films and other eyewitnesses stuff. When someone tells a story and then they either change it or it doesn't match what they're saying or it doesn't fit or it doesn't seem right, then there's something going on there in their story. And that's why I want to make this video here and point out about Mr.Zapruder Ms.Sitzman, because there's a lot of things that people don't understand. There's a lot of things that doesn't seem right and it's not fitting in. So something else is going on at that time, like I point out in my research and in my videos, just like everything I pointed out here. Something's very suspicious going on when it came to Mr. Zapruder and Mrs. Sitzman. Because everything I point out is everything that we see, okay, is really not matching the story, but there's also a lot of red flags being thrown up in the air as well. So I just want to present this information here and give people some more information out about Mr. Zapruder, Mrs. Sitzman. And you think about it, and you be the judge on what you think they're actually doing and stuff like that. Do you think it's just a normal, typical day, and they're just doing that? Because, like I said, Mr. Zapruder only bought the one camera, and he bought only one roll of film, and he bought it 2 weeks before the assassination of JFK. And during that 2 weeks, he only did a little bit of filming of his family. Then he started filming Mrs. Sitzman right before the assassination. And after the assassination was over with, he went ahead and gave his camera away, sold the film, never picked up another camera, never picked up no more film or anything else. So see, that's kind of suspicious as well. But I just want to give all this information out. And, you know, people need to know this type of information because there's a lot of things behind the assassination of JFK that doesn't make sense. And that's what I'm trying to do, make sense out of all of it and trying to find the answer for the people. Okay, so don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends about it. Share this video and other videos of mine on social medias and stuff so other people may know this information. Always in the description down below. You'll find a site where you can order my book, Evidence of Conspiracy, on paperback or Kindle. It's the only book you ever need in JFK assassination. Thank you, and you have a pleasant day.